Alright guys, welcome back to Thursday's Directions. Um, Today's going to be very similar to yesterday. We're just going to be going through some more of the Mesopotamia notes. Something to kind of keep in mind is tomorrow we have two assignments due. The first is the Early Mesopotamia Reading Guide, which you can find here. We're skipping number 2 and we're skipping number 9 just like always. And then the other assignment that's due is the Mesopotamia vocab sheet. Okay. So yeah, just find Google the term, YouTube the term, just kind of an independent research, see how much you guys can gather up. Obviously, every single term is a test question, so make sure you know them. But for the notes today, what we're doing mainly is we're just going to go through the Babylonian Empire. So yesterday we made it all the way through the Akkadians with Sargon the Great. And today we're just going to go through the first part of the Babylonian Empire, because Babylon is weird in Mesopotamia because they rule for a little bit, then they get conquered, and then they conquer the conqueror. So they end up being in control of Mesopotamia 2 separate times. And the key guy today is Hammurabi, because he is the great lawgiver. You can kind of read through this. It basically just explains why Sumerian, why the Akkadians, why they crumble, and what allows for the Babylonians to take over. And it comes down to this thing called salinization. Basically, there's too much salt on the ground. You can't grow crops anymore. We get a drought. We get a food shortage. People start to die. It leaves you susceptible to invasion. And that's what happens. So the Babylonians take over. They're more, as you can see here, Babylon is here, kind of more in the south. We're going to see kind of the power start to work its way north. So eventually we'll see like the city of Nineveh become really popular and become kind of the place to be in Mesopotamia. But for here, we just want to talk about Hammurabi and his code. That's what he's known for. That's actually a key question today. Is who's the lawgiver? And the lawgiver is Hammurabi. So he comes up with kind of the very first code of laws that we've ever seen on Earth. Okay, that we know about, right? So there's 282 different laws, and a lot of them are kind of bent on like revenge or making sure that things are equal. So, like, there was literally a code called an eye for an eye. So, if you did something and somehow the person that you did something to lost an eye, he would then legally be allowed to take your eye. Same thing, tooth for a tooth. Different things like that. But we get some other things that other laws that are still around today, like buyer beware. Right? Like if you buy a car off the lot and you drive it away and it crashes or whatever, or it doesn't crash, but if it's a junker and it just dies. Well, buyer beware, you shouldn't have bought it. Okay, so that law is still in effect. Law 195 is pretty funny. It just talks about what happens if you're a construction worker and the house collapses and kills somebody inside the house. Well, now that family gets to kill somebody of your own family. So, pretty hardcore. But Hammurabi, he's the king. He's like the main king of Babylon, or the emperor. So he creates the laws. He's also the judge of the laws. So you definitely want to be on his good side. The city of Babylon is extremely beautiful, according to historians from the time, especially Greek historians like Herodotus, who a lot of people consider to be pretty factional. So keep an eye on that. We're not going to worry too much about the math and the numbers at the moment. Just know what the innovations are, like multiplication, square roots. As long as you can do that, you'll be fine. And then for the combating of salinization, so this is how kind of the Hittites and the Kassites are able to kind of rule a little bit. They found a way to not have salt in the soil. And there's two things they did. They started growing a separate crop called barley. They introduced drainage ditches so that the water, aka the salt that's in the water, doesn't just, when the water evaporates, the salt just doesn't stay there. So they try to get the water away while the salt's obviously still mixed in with the water to try to make sure the salt does not end up in the crops. And speaking of crops, they started doing crop rotation, which means that they're basically leaving a part of their field empty, which will allow for the soil to regain its nutrients. So by just leaving your crop, let's say vacant, let's say you have a crop, you have a field, you split your field into like 4 squares, like a 4-square game, and you just always leave one of your squares empty. That allows for it to rest, allows for the soil to gain the nutrients back, so that you're not just basically farming your soil into oblivion. Because eventually if you farm the soil every single time, every single season, eventually the soil runs out or it becomes not farmable. Alright, so this way we can always make sure we have farmland available. And that's basically the gist of the first part of the Babylonian Empire. We just want to know basically Hammurabi and his code, who he is, and then tomorrow we're going to look at the Assyrians, and then on Monday we're going to look at the second part of Babylon and their second renaissance. But tomorrow's notes with the Assyrians, as you can see here, a land bathed in blood. The Assyrians, they take warfare very seriously. So, but that'll be for tomorrow. I'm also going to start putting in like YouTube videos inside the directions. So if you're not really a note person or the notes aren't making too much sense, I'm going to kind of start doing like a video note series where I'm just going to start putting YouTube videos together for you guys. So if you're more into that and you like kind of watching, it'd be kind of like more Crash Course-y kind of stuff. They're not all going to be Crash Course videos, but they're going to be on the same, like, I would say, graphics and kind of the same style. But so if you're into that kind of stuff, I'll start putting those up there as well, to kind of give you guys additional resources. And I may start throwing in assignments in the directions video because there's only like normally one view on one of these. And as you can see, we're spending 6 minutes. So if you're that one person who watches these, shoot me an email right now. Say, hey, I watched the directions all the way to the end. Just a little test there. Alright, see you guys tomorrow.